Hello and welcome to GreenFleet Talks, where today we are having a chat with Sarah Gray. Sarah from Rivus. Hello.
Hello, nice to meet you, John. Thanks for having me.
And you now, question for you. Rivus, tell us who you are, what you do.
Good, yeah, Rivus is a fleet management organisation. We manage around about 110,000 vehicles for kind of large critical fleet operators. So if you think the vehicles that need to be on the road, they can't afford to be off the road. We've got around about 80 garages that we own. Vehicles come into our garages, we maintain, service those vehicles, keep them on the road as much as possible, reducing the vehicle off-road time, making sure that our customers' vehicles are on the road. So we've also got lots of EV kind of innovations going on. So that's why I joined. So I'm head of electric vehicles and alternative fuel vehicles at Rivus. And I've put together a whole kind of, we call it EVAS, electric vehicles as a service proposition, so that customers can transition to electric vehicles. And it kind of gives them all those kind of different puzzle pieces to help them and support them along the way.
Oh, you've got a massive task on your hands then, because with the government saying that they want zero emission for HGVs by 2035, that's a workload which is seriously ramping up right now. There are possible exemptions to those net zero aspirations for HGVs. What are they? And do you think that it's too soon really and we're pushing too hard to reduce emissions in HGVs?
Yeah, I mean, the targets are ambitious, and I think fleet operators have got a real challenge on their hand because they've got a lot to think about and a lot to consider, making sure those vehicles are kind of safe and on the road. Transitioning to zero emissions is going to be really tricky, really difficult. But I think there's lots of innovations already. So if you think Mercedes, Scania, Teva, there's loads of different manufacturers that are already have large HGVs that are suitable for fleets. But I think there are going to be certain fleet operators that are going to really struggle to transition, and therefore these are where the exemptions are going to be needed. So I think targets are ambitious. I think a lot of fleet operators will manage it, but there definitely will be some exemptions welcome.
I guess the key to this transition is speaking to you early. If you have a fleet and saying, listen, this is where we're at. We know we've got to get here by 2035, and I assume you have a process, a way of supporting fleets as they come on to make that transition as easy as possible.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that we can do before they just go out and buy a brand new vehicle, whether it be electric or another alternative, hydrogen, whatever it might be. Things like what's worked really well with some of our customers is making some adaptations to the vehicles, so you can put them to low carbon fuels rather than zero emissions. So between now and 2035, there's things they can do to reduce the emissions, and we've done that with some customers. It's worked really well. I think some of the vehicles that our customers are running, large HGVs, very expensive conversions on them. The last thing they want to do is scrap that and start again, because that's not really that sustainable. So to adapt to that vehicle, switch it to low carbon fuels is one step. And then obviously in the future, when those vehicles come to a natural life end, we have got some processes, and our garages are equipped as well. So we've got technicians that are trained to service and maintain electric vehicles. We've got charging points going into our garages to support that deployment for our customers. So when it comes to the point where they will transition, we will be absolutely ready for them and support them all the way.
There are still barriers though, aren't there? There's still things which are causing fleet managers sleepless nights. What are those barriers that you're having to help them overcome?
That's right. I think we're probably seeing things now like we did 5 to 10 years ago with cars. People saying it costs too much. I can't charge them. There's not enough charging infrastructure. They haven't got the right range. They're not going to complete the day job or whatever it is. Excuse me. So we're seeing a lot of those barriers again, but actually we're working through them because the public infrastructure has come a long way. There are still incentives available from government to support the cost reduction of these vehicles. You have to look on a total cost of ownership basis. You can't just say, okay, that used to be 100,000 and the EV equivalent is 150, because there's savings along the way when you look at the total cost of ownership. So again, it's supporting our customers with the modelling of those TCO costs to understand how much they really cost. I think payload's a big one as well, for kind of like commercial vehicles, HGVs, lot of our customers need to have a certain payload. You know, they need to have equipment within that vehicle, and I think that's where they're struggling. But having said that, again, I said we was at the Road Transport Expo just a month or so ago, and the amount of innovations there are now where there are suitable vehicles. So where people used to say the main barrier is, you know, like I say, cost, charging infrastructure, range, and there's nothing available. Well, actually there are now, and it's worth just having a chat with a fleet management organisation like us to say what is available, what will do the day job for us, and we can support.
The government need to do more, do you think, in terms of supporting the sector? You know, you talk about grant funding, and there's never enough grant funding. There wasn't with cars. It's always a challenge, and that money gets stretched. Could government and should government do more? Because this is a massive area of concern, is HGVs, and not making that transition soon enough, not because we've got a target, but actually because emissions kill people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is more kind of collaboration going on, and government are getting more involved in things like the charging infrastructure, where they've had various consultations out and things like that to say that they're helping. And obviously they removed the plug-in car grant recently, and they sort of said that was to support things like commercial vehicles and charging and stuff. So there is more that I think they're doing, but there always can be more done. And I think, you know, we're going to have the same issues again when we get to hydrogen. Obviously, there are hydrogen plans out from government, but it's a zero emission vehicle. There needs to be more done. And I think people aren't going to want to move to anything like a zero emission vehicle, an EV or hydrogen, without having a bit more of a clearer picture. And I think that's where we need some more support from government to make that picture very, you know, much clearer for everyone to understand.
Yeah, business likes certainty, doesn't it? And if it knows what the policies are, it knows what the grant frameworks are, it's able then to make decisions that have great rewards, but sometimes take long-term planning. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, you know, things like, I know we talk about HGVs now, commercial fleets, but things like the benefit in kind for cars is just, you know, it's not clarified. And I think it's the same with the vans. It's not clarified. How long are these grants going to be available? How much are they going to be? Because it was only last December, I think, when they, you know, brought the cost down, reduced the plug-in grant. So there is some uncertainty. I think if we have a planned future that says you're going to have this many years of benefit in kind, we're going to have this many years of plug-in grant, we're going to have this many years of continuous rollout of charging infrastructure and hydrogen infrastructure for where it's required, then I think people will be more at ease.
So fleet operators of HGVs are taking bulk deliveries up and down our motorway, trunk road networks, doing an incredible job. But there's another piece to the jigsaw, which is that last mile delivery, where you get your product to outside a city, big town, Edinburgh, London. You don't want big trucks in the centre of London, centre of Edinburgh. So you're then looking at offloading that truck into smaller vehicles, and ultimately maybe even completely zero emission for that last mile. What innovation is coming? Are we working with hubs more, to distribution hubs, to take in those large trucks, offload and get out as emission free as possible? What else is happening in this last mile space?
There is that. So customers are adapting. So things like the hubs, where they used to have equipment that they used to carry around everywhere, they're stopping that, and they're going to localized areas where they can either, you know, get rid of some equipment, replenish, or, you know, replace what they might need to do. But yeah, I think you're right. There's things like the clean air zones now. They're causing a bit of trouble for fleet operators. So they're having to think about right vehicle, right space. So just because a vehicle used to go from A to B, and that happened to be in a city centre, doesn't mean it has to happen now. So people are having to kind of rip up their rule books and say, let's start again. What needs to happen? What do we need to adapt? And you're right, things like switching vehicles. So simple things like taking a vehicle out of one area and switching it to a different area because it's compliant in one clean air zone and it's not compliant in the other. That's one simple task, but there's definitely more that needs to be done for support to support fleet operators in things like the last mile delivery. If you've got, like you say, a large HGV full of equipment that shouldn't be going into a city centre, it needs to be the last mile delivery. How do you adapt? What you don't want to do is switch that from one large vehicle to 4 smaller vehicles, because it defeats the object. We don't need more vehicles on the road. So there does need to be more innovation and more kind of thought leadership in that space.
Yeah, without question. And Rebus, I guess, are key in that you have 100 and odd thousand vehicles on the road. How do you get your knowledge spread? So as an organization, you work with a set number of fleets. How do you also work with those fleets or communicate with those fleets that you don't formally work with?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, Rebus last September, we ran our first kind of, we called it our Rebus Innovate Day. So we invited customers, prospects, key industry speakers to an event, and we hosted that in Birmingham, central to most. And we talked about some of the issues that are happening. And we had, as I say, thought leadership, thought leaders, industry experts talking about some of the things that people should be considering, because fleets are in the dark. Our customers are well informed. We speak to our customers all the time, but prospects, other, smaller businesses, they haven't got an idea. They haven't got these kind of thought leadership or experts to go to and get the information. So we first hosted that event last September. Since then, we've run an EV Academy, which took place in March. And again, we had the likes of Arrival, Vauxhall coming in talking about their EV product, but also their hydrogen product, which is going to be coming. We talked about the total cost of ownership and the fact that actually comparing a diesel vehicle to an EV vehicle based on total cost of ownership isn't good enough. You need to include things like the charging infrastructure, things like driver training, things like a charge card so you can access different networks. So we've got another academy coming back up in October. So again, it's about reaching those fleets that need the support. We're sharing as much information as we can, and that's all we can do. We need to collaborate, we need to share information, and that's where we facilitate our customers to come in, have a chat with each other. And it was really good because last March, when we had the first EV Academy, you could just hear within the room, we had small workshops, and you could hear that some fleet operators were saying, well, what are you doing about power, onboard power in your EVs? And then someone else would respond, and it was like, this is brilliant. This is what we want to achieve. We've got a lot of the answers, but our customers need to be talking to each other, and that's why we facilitated it.
I asked somebody earlier today about what makes the hairs on their arms stand up about our industry, because for me, what you've just said is that's really exciting stuff. We've got challenges, we've got opportunities, we've got people who know the answers. Actually, the challenge is getting those people together to share and collaborate and move forward. You're clearly doing your part in that, so thank you for what you do. Final question, if I gave you a magic wand and I said you could solve a problem overnight to do with your fleet, what would it be?
Oh, that's a tricky question. What would it be to solve the problems? I mean, they have to be zero emissions, let's face it, because like you said earlier, people are dying. It's just not acceptable. Everyone has the right to clean air. So every vehicle needs to be accessed. I think if I had a magic wand, I would just switch everyone to a zero emission vehicle and wave them on their merry way, because once you've gone over, you're never turning back.
That's the thing. Once you've set your bum in a low emission vehicle and you drive it and you think, somehow this is better, this is more fun, this is just great, I really like this.
Yeah. And that, again, collecting information. So we've tested, I think we're up to about 19 light commercial vehicles, electric vehicles, and we've tested them in various different, I think we do up to 36 different tests in each vehicle, so that we can help our customers again, because like you mentioned, the barriers, haven't got enough payload. Okay, here's a vehicle that has the payload. All right, if you have a full payload, the battery drains. Okay, it does, but this is by how much? So it's kind of doing all this on their behalf and sharing the data and making sure that everyone has access to clear information.
Yeah, the only way to deal with fear is with facts and experience. Get your bum in there, give it a go.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Sarah, you have been quite wonderful. Thank you ever so much for your time today. Keep doing all the marvelous things you're doing. Let's help you collaborate. GreenFleet Talks is very grateful to you. Let's get the message out there and just do what you do, because you do it so well.
Thanks, John. Good to talk.
Bless you. Thank you.